news across the nation and around the world. Another special Sunday edition of Special Report starts right now.
Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier. Cautious optimism seems to be the theme of the Clinton campaign tonight, but the email scandal won't go away, fueled by constant document dumps from WikiLeaks. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel is live tonight in Charlotte. Good evening, Mike.
Well, Bret, good evening. Hillary Clinton has picked up the pace of campaigning here in the final stretch, making multiple stops in North Carolina today after making 2 stops in Pennsylvania yesterday. She began her day here visiting an African-American church.
We must pray, and we must pray together.
At a Baptist church in Durham, Clinton had some help from the so-called mothers of the movement who have lost children in incidents with police. She focused on African-American turnout.
We know we face the continuing challenge of systemic racism. If we're honest with each other, we have to choose hope over fear, or there is no future for any of us.
The King of Morocco agreed to host a Clinton Global Initiative Summit and give $12 million only if Mrs. Clinton attended a May 2015 meeting. Clinton refused to answer the question.
No, I have nothing to say about WikiLeaks other than I think we should all be concerned about what the Russians are trying to do to our election.
Top aide Huma Abedin emailed campaign chairman John Podesta and campaign manager Robbie Mook in January 2015, quote, "This was HRC's idea. Our office approached the Moroccans, and they 100% believe they are doing this at her request." Abedin concluded she created this mess, and she knows it. On Fox News Sunday, Chris Wallace confronted Mook about this latest pay-to-play allegation involving the Clinton Foundation.
Well, I didn't want anything on her schedule that was going to distract from the campaign. And again, the Clinton Global Initiative had this meeting scheduled in Morocco.
But it was the big money from a foreign person to the foundation at the time she's running for president.
This was, as you can see in those emails, this was a scheduling matter, and we didn't want her going overseas. I didn't want her going overseas before the campaign was kicking off. Every campaign wants to win by the biggest margin possible, so that would be great. The reason that we've gone into Arizona is that it has come into play.
While the Clinton campaign is expressing confidence at this stage, the emails continue being dumped each day, and WikiLeaks is threatening it has a surprise for Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine. Bret?
Mike Emanuel live in Charlotte. Mike, thank you. Let's bring in our panel. Early here on Special Report, Charles Hurt, political columnist for the Washington Times. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics. Julie Pace, White House correspondent for the Associated Press. And Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com. Okay, I want to put up the Trump contract with America that he tried to roll out in Gettysburg. He did. First, a proposal to constitutional amendment to impose term limits. Second, a hiring freeze on all federal employees to reduce federal workforce through attrition, except military, public safety, and public health. Third, a requirement that every new federal regulation to existing regulations be eliminated, for everyone to be eliminated. Fourth, a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials becoming lobbyists after leaving government service. Fifth, a lifetime ban on White House officials lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. Sixth, a complete ban on foreign lobbyists raising money for American elections. Okay, there's the Trump contract with America. Charlie, does that make a difference in these final closing weeks?
Well, I think it's a great. I think that's a great proposal, and I think that talks right to the very people that have been so enthusiastic. The problem is that it's a little bit late to be doing it, and it would have been good if he had done it before the debates, or at least before the last debate, because if for no other reason, it gives him something to focus on and talk about the issues. Because I know everybody likes to talk about what a nasty campaign this has been, and it's been interesting to say the least. But it's not entirely. It's not like it's not about issues. On the Trump side, the reason so many of those people love Donald Trump is because of the issues, and this contract goes to the heart of those issues that they like about him. He might be vulgar and all that kind of stuff, but there are issues that draw people to him.
Julie, supporters would say we buy in. They might not hear everything about this because The news focused on something else he said at that event in Gettysburg.
And by now, Trump should know that that's always going to be the case. If he, as the Republican nominee, if any presidential nominee goes out there and says something really inflammatory, in this case saying that he's going to sue all of these women that have come forward, that's going to be the news. And he knows that. So the idea that he can't put these grievances aside in order to ensure that what he's laying out, as Charlie says, that has a lot of resonance, both with Republicans and Democrats, frankly, that's his mistake. And I don't understand why at this point in the campaign he hasn't come to grips with that.
And he begins by importuning voters to cut through the clutter and the noise and focus on these important issues. And then he creates more clutter and noise during the speech. And of course the media covers it. It's the trap that he walks into knowingly, as Julie says. But I think Charlie's right. There's a lot of serious stuff elsewhere in the speech that is getting short shrift, and I just try to close my eyes and envision an alternate campaign where he gives this speech without the other nonsense in early September after Labor Day, and then relentlessly focuses on it when the women come out, when the tape comes out, rip off the Band-Aid and come back to these issues and these proposals. Hillary Clinton is still quite unpopular. We could be looking at a different race, but we're not.
Here's the campaign manager for Donald Trump's campaign and a former Democratic campaign manager.
The fact is that this race is not over. Many in the media want to say it's over. For the 12th time, they're counting Donald Trump out. We're not giving up. We know we can win this, and we are certainly not acceding to the same chattering class that's been wrong about Donald Trump for about a year and a half.
Obviously ran President Obama's campaign. AB.
Well, Axelrod is right. Trump always makes himself the issue, and he doesn't step on his message. He pulverizes it. And the only time he ever did well and built the momentum and really had Clinton on her heels was right between August 13th, when it was in the doldrums and he had new management come in, and on September 26th, the first general election debate. And during those 5 weeks, he completely saved a tanking campaign. He was teleprompter Trump, always on message, always with his notes, really restrained from Twitter, and not talking about his anger grievances. He has a message. If he really cared about this issue, it would have been part of his message a year ago. But what he likes to do is bring it back to himself. That's why no one on that campaign, Kellyanne Conway, can go on all the shows she wants and talk about what they're going to try to do and keep it focused on the issue, and it's all the media's fault. But Donald Trump is destroying his campaign.
Let's take a look at some polls. First, our SR average. This is a poll of polls that we've compiled, and these are the latest polls that we trust. Big organizations: Quinnipiac, Fox News, Bloomberg, Monmouth, CBS, and it has Clinton up 5.6. Now, I get a lot of questions, a lot of emails about why these polls are not included. The LA Times tracking poll. It is a two-way race. It has Clinton at 44 and Trump at 44. The reason we don't put this in our list, several things, but first of all, it's an online panel, which means they interview the same voters over and over again. That has its own issues, but they also weight by past vote, and our people say that this is not something that we're going to follow, but there it is, the LA Times USC tracking poll. The second one is Rasmussen. It is a four-way race poll. It has Donald Trump up 2, margin of error 2.5. Rasmussen is a robo poll, so we do not use it. It doesn't qualify because we use live interviewers, digital phones. It doesn't include landlines and cell phones. It's not live interviewers. That's why we don't use it, but there it is. And the third one is IBD, Investor Business Daily, and TIPP, four-way race. Trump 43, Clinton 41. Now, IBD does meet our standards, although it seems an outlier. We should point out that IBD, Charlie, was very close to the ending at 2012. It had a good record in 2008 as well, and it is a poll to watch. It meets our standards, but it is not matching any of the other polls that are out there.
Yeah, and it kind of won the sweepstakes, as you said, in 2012, in terms of being the closest at the end. And the big question here that has, I think, dogged a lot of smart pollsters is there an element out there of people who are lying to pollsters because Donald Trump is so hated, and they know what the right answer is, and it may not be Hillary Clinton, but it's definitely not Donald Trump. And is that going to be significant? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be significant enough. The enthusiasm that I find from Trump supporters is they're pretty out and proud about it. But either way, this has been the wildest election of my lifetime. And if he were to come back, it wouldn't be the strangest thing that happened in this campaign.
The campaign manager for Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway, concedes that they're down. So I think that's reason enough to be suspicious of some of the numbers that have him slightly ahead. But of course she's going to say they've still got a shot. 15 days left. A lot can change. WikiLeaks is still up to their tricks. And Hillary Clinton remains a deeply distrusted, disliked woman.
Quickly, Julie, I do sense this angst in the Clinton folks that there's like almost too much optimism from their people, that they're running away with it.
The biggest problem for Clinton would be a low turnout election. She needs low propensity voters, young people who don't have a history of voting to show up for her. If people either feel unenthusiastic about her or feel like she has it in the bag and don't show up, that is potentially Trump's avenue.
Panel, thank you very much. President Obama's defense chief, Secretary Ash Carter, is getting a first-hand look at the battle to retake Mosul, the key Iraqi city under ISIS control. He visited nearby Erbil today. Correspondent Connor Powell reports ISIS may be giving up some ground, but it is not giving up.
Iraqi and Kurdish troops continue to move closer to the ISIS-held city of Mosul. Militants, however, doing everything they can to resist, burning sulfur to create a thick black cloud over the battlefield, lacing roads and buildings with IEDs, and sending suicide bombers to attack coalition forces. Still, one by one, the towns on the outskirts of Mosul are falling. Today, Kurdish Peshmerga forces liberated the village of Bishika, just 8 miles from Mosul. Civilians recently freed by Iraqi security forces describe the horrors of living under the control of ISIS. "We were petrified," this woman said. "We were living in a ghost town that was just scary. You didn't know at any time if death could be at your doorstep." This weekend, U.S. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter visited Iraq to assess the progress of the operation. U.S. officials say so far, the Iraqi forces have made, quote, considerable progress. But Carter stressed the battle to free Mosul will take time, and ISIS remains a dangerous enemy for both Iraqis and the 5,000 American troops assisting them.
Whether they're flying airplanes overhead or whether they're advising units on the ground, even behind the front lines, they are at risk. It's also important that everybody understands that we must do this. We have to protect ourselves.
The fight for Mosul is not without controversy. There are some 500 Turkish troops in Iraq, and Turkish leaders say they will participate in the operation to free Mosul, a move both Iraqi and American leaders reject. Bret?
Connor, thank you. Let's turn now to my friend and colleague Chris Wallace. Still in the afterglow of his moderating of the general election debate, now back to his day job, host of Fox News Sunday. Chris, you spoke with the campaign managers for both the Clinton and Trump campaigns. What did they say about the strategies in the home stretch?
Well, Robbie Mook was a lot more confident than Kellyanne Conway. The Clinton campaign manager talks about the fact that they seem to be banking a lot of votes, a lot of women voting early. He said 40% of the vote will have been cast before we even get to Election Day, and their numbers look pretty good. Conway admits that it's a tougher race at this point, but she talks about some of the swing states still being within reach. Ohio, a tie. Florida, maybe down 3 or 4, but maybe reachable. Iowa. Clearly, the Clinton camp is more confident than the Trump camp, but as Conway said, we're not giving up.
Chris, Kellyanne Conway was pulled from Fox News Sunday 2 times before, finally appearing today. What did she have to say about those suggestions that she's somehow grown uncomfortable with Trump's campaign?
Conway absolutely denied she's putting distance between herself and Donald Trump. I pointed out that after the debate, one reporter, and she retweeted this, said that one of Trump's bad answers was Trump being Trump and all the other good answers were Conway-esque. She said, well, he was talking about things that I've been talking about in terms of women and abortion and right to life. But she said, I'm absolutely on board the Trump campaign. And she denied, even though we've certainly had this experience, that she's been pulled from Fox News Sunday, particularly once the scandal started about women and their accusations about Donald Trump.
Chris, in the debate, Secretary Clinton avoided your question about allegations of pay to play at the Clinton Foundation. And you asked today Robbie Mook about a new revelation this week on that $12 million donation from the King of Morocco.
Mook pushed back real hard on that. We even read the emails that showed that Clinton's top aides were debating whether or not she could make this appearance in Morocco in the spring of 2015, just as she was running for president, when the King of Morocco was going to give $12 million to the foundation. Mook said that it was just a scheduling matter. It had nothing to do with appearances, but if you read the emails, it sure doesn't look that way.
Finally, did you ever think you'd see Tom Hanks play you on TV?
I was holding out for George Clooney, but Tom Hanks playing me on Saturday Night Live, pretty good.
Well, he did it well. Chris Wallace, congrats again. We'll see you next week. When we come back, the strategy in the final 2 weeks of the campaign. We'll talk to Senator Jeff Sessions, a key advisor to Donald Trump.
We will never solve our problems by relying on the same politicians who created these problems in the first place. Hillary Clinton is not running against me. She's running against change. And she's running against all of the American people and all of the American voters. I'm asking the American people to rise above the noise and the clutter of our broken politics and to embrace that great faith and optimism that has always been the central ingredient in the American character.
Donald Trump in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. That is the Donald Trump his supporters want to see on the trail in the final 2 weeks of the campaign, laying out the case for change, talking about the Trump contract with America. Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions has been a Trump supporter almost from the beginning. He joins us tonight from Raleigh, North Carolina. Senator, thanks for being here. I want to talk to you about the specifics of that. And is that the closing argument that Donald Trump is going to stick to in these final 2 weeks?
Well, essentially, I think that is a closing argument. And one of the big things that our voters are going to be deciding in the next few days really is whether or not they believe we can actually make change in Washington. By a 3-to-1 margin, they believe that we're on the wrong track. And I believe, Bret, what's missing here in the intelligentsia and the elites is that they disrespect that feeling. They think things are okay. But the American people are the one that's right. They are not being, things aren't going well for them. Politicians spend way too much time raising money with rich people who have an entirely different agenda than the single mom, the working guy who lost his job, the factory closed, and those kind of things. So this is a huge matter that's going to be decided in November. It's the chance for the American people to have their voice heard. And if they believe Donald Trump really can get this done, I think they're going to move to him in big numbers.
This election is always about, at this point, addition. Adding people to your supporters, getting them to the polls, independents, people that perhaps are not the motivated base. You know, analysts looking at this campaign say that it has been a lot about Donald Trump, and that has been a negative. Your response to that?
Well, some of it's positive. People like his strength. They like that he's a businessman, that he's somebody who does something beside talk smooth all the time. He's a man of results. So I think that's kind of a mix. Some people are hesitant. There's just no doubt about that, Bret. I would just encourage our people to look at the issues that he's talking about. Can we have a better immigration policy and fix it? Yes, the American people are right. Can't we have a better trade policy that protects our jobs and wages? Yes, the American people are right about that. Can't we fix Obamacare? Yes. Hillary Clinton is wrong on all of those, desperately wrong on those, even radical on those. And so I think if this thing works right, as we go into the last few days of this campaign, these powerful issues, and the one he mentioned at Gettysburg, really this corruption, this lack, and corruption in the sense that Washington is not serving properly the interests of the good and decent people of our country. I think in that sense it is a corrupt system.
But Senator, also at Gettysburg, he said this in that speech.
Every woman lied when they came forward to hurt my campaign. Total fabrication. The events never happened. Never. All of these liars will be sued after the election is over.
Was that the right move?
Well, he's going to defend himself. That's just part of his lifestyle and his belief that you don't take shots and not defend yourself. But he spent 99% of that talk talking about great issues that are important to the American people, and I think that's what this election has got to be about.
I want to talk to you, Senator, about the path to victory. And we've often talked about the road to 270, the electoral votes needed. Our election headquarters moved, for example, Texas to lean Republican. But just today, RCP, Real Clear Politics, moved Texas, Republican Texas, to a toss-up state, including Arizona as a toss-up, Nevada as a toss-up, Georgia as a toss-up. I mean, are you concerned looking at these maps?
Well, what he needs to do, and I think you suggested it earlier, is to stay focused on these great issues where he has tremendous support with the American people.
But you're convinced he can win?
Yes, he's got to stay on those issues, and he's got to translate that controversial personality of his into confidence that he can actually follow through on the things he's talked about. People want somebody who can get something done about things they care about for a change. They want change in Washington. There's no doubt about that. The polls show it clearly, and he's the change agent. And I believe if he can develop the confidence that he can actually accomplish that, he will continue to move up in the polls.
Senator, we've covered the WikiLeaks emails extensively here, the substance of them. We've pressed the Clinton folks for answers. And by the way, we asked for a Clinton surrogate tonight, and no one was offered to us opposite your interview here. But today, WikiLeaks tweeted out, "Leak early, leak often. If WikiLeaks had obtained Clinton emails earlier, U.S. voters could have chosen Sanders v. Trump. So do it now." Brian Fallon with the Clinton campaign tweeting, "WikiLeaks makes its Trump endorsement official, not that it was secret prior to now." What about the concern that Russian interference in U.S. elections needs to be talked about more than it is?
Well, I think he's talked about a lot. I think Hillary Clinton wants to totally ignore the devastating information that's shown in her team's emails, and she wants to blame it on Russia. There should be an investigation. I do not like these kind of activities, whether it's leaked of security information or not. They need to be investigated. We need to know what happened. But just like the Pentagon Papers, the material is out there in the public realm, and it's necessary for us to observe what it means about her honesty, her integrity. She makes out like Donald Trump is the worst kind of person, but when you read these emails, you see that she has very serious ethical problems, and the issues are what should decide this election, and she's wrong on them.
Senator, we appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
We will cover all sides of the WikiLeaks emails, both the substance and the concerns about Russian interference. And again, we invited the Hillary Clinton campaign to provide someone as well. Up next, the balance of power in Congress. We'll look at the key races to watch in the U.S. Senate and a profile of a crucial battle out west. Welcome back to Special Report. Let's talk now about the balance of power, a huge story on election night. We've talked about concerns about the House. Really, the Senate is the one that is hanging in the balance. The control, 54 to 46. Republicans hold the majority, 44 Democrats and 2 independents that caucus with the Democrats. They would need to pick up a net of 4 seats and the White House to take control of the U.S. Senate. Let's take a look at our map. And if the election were held today, by the average of polls tonight, meaning even a slight margin for one candidate, we'd give that race to them. This is how it breaks down. These are the states, red and blue. The gray states don't have a Senate race this cycle. Democrats, if the election were held tonight, would win in New Hampshire. They would win in Wisconsin, in Illinois, in Indiana. Evan Baier would pull off a win, even though his race is getting tighter. As you look around, you see some other tight races here that Republicans, as of tonight, would hold on to. Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey would win. Marco Rubio would win in Florida. Richard Burr would win in North Carolina. And Roy Blunt would win in Missouri. Take a look at this number, 50-50. One more race out west that will happen late in the night, and that is in the state of Nevada, where you have Republican Joe Heck, who's trying to pick up the seat of Harry Reid, who's leaving. However, Catherine Cortez Masto has the lead in this race as of tonight. This race is coming down to Donald Trump and Reed's political machine. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt has the story.
By voting for me, we are going to ensure that we give to the Senate that Democratic majority.
Catherine Cortez Masto, a former Nevada Attorney General, is the woman chosen by Democrats to try to succeed retiring Senator Harry Reid. When the Democrat Senate leader announced his retirement last year, Republicans saw a chance to pick up a seat in what promised to be a tough cycle for the GOP. The Republican choice is Congressman Joe Heck.
We're getting a great response, so we're going to continue to work hard up and through November 8th to ensure victory.
Like so much else this election season, this critically important Senate race is being overshadowed by the presidential choice. Congressman Heck was quick to withdraw his support for Donald Trump in the wake of Trump's caught-on-tape comments about women, and is now dealing with the fallout.
The key is to make sure that they understand the reasons why we need to control the Senate and why I'm the best person to occupy that seat.
Catherine Cortez Masto refused our repeated requests for an interview, but on the campaign trail, she doesn't miss a moment to tie Congressman Heck to Donald Trump.
That is not somebody that anybody should be standing up for. And I'll tell you what, the only reason Congressman Heck is unendorsing him now is because he's concerned about his political career.
In the majority of polls throughout this campaign, Congressman Heck has held a slim lead over Catherine Cortez Masto, albeit within the margin of error. But Heck's disavowal of Donald Trump has certainly thrown a new element into this tight race, and there's no clear picture yet as to whether that will help or hurt him in a battle for a Senate seat that Republicans desperately want and need to win. Bret?
Thanks, Jonathan. Next up, Utah on the presidential side, a state that almost always goes Republican. This year might be different in a very different way. Correspondent Alicia Acuna explains.
For the first time in 52 years, a significant number of voters in Utah might not vote for the GOP nominee.
Republicans have a 3-to-1 advantage with party identification in the state. 3-to-1. I mean, it should be easy.
But for this conservative state and home of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Donald Trump has not been an easy sell, something he acknowledged this summer.
We're having a tremendous problem in Utah. Now, Utah's a different place.
It's people that say things to me like, I want to be able to look my kids in the eye and tell them I did the right thing.
Which is how the idea of voting for independent, conservative, member of the Mormon Church, Utah native presidential candidate Evan McMullin became a thing.
It was great. Well, I had no star recognition. That was nice.
The former CIA operative and his running mate, Mindy Finn, on the ballot in 11 states were virtual unknowns until Trump's taped comments about women were released.
The combustibility of both of the two major party candidates, combined with just the overall volatility of the race, means that great things are possible for us that people don't expect.
In the Real Clear Politics average of polls, McMullin is tied with Clinton and not far behind Trump. The Clinton campaign is seizing the moment.
We are Mormons for Hillary.
More than anything, I think Utah has an outsized role in sending a message in this election to reject Donald Trump.
Clinton isn't a favorite either. She was trounced by Senator Sanders in the caucus. But the Salt Lake Tribune, the largest paper in Utah, did endorse Clinton, writing Trump's, quote, entire campaign was based on divisive, bigoted, and insulting rhetoric. Writing, this is one of those rare moments where it is necessary to take a clear stand against the hucksterism, misogyny, narcissism, and latent despotism that infect the Trump campaign. The paper is not backing Clinton. Monson says the editorial should not be confused with a statement from its owner, the Mormon Church, which does not get involved in partisan politics.
You do get a sense of sort of tacit approval that they wouldn't publish this if they didn't think it was okay.
McMullin rejects the idea he is a spoiler for anyone, charging the GOP nominee is the true spoiler. In Salt Lake City, Alicia Acuna, Fox News.
Now a look at what seems to some people as an undemocratic idea, organized voting focused on stopping a particular candidate. Correspondent Douglas Kennedy tells us about what's called ranked choice voting.
The Democrats played a very smart card. They instilled enormous fear in voters.
In 2014, Elliott Cutler ran for governor of Maine as an independent and got 8% of the vote. Democrats in Maine accuse you of being the spoiler candidate because the votes that went to you, they say, could have defeated the Republican governor.
Look, most people wanted me to be the governor.
Wanted him, but voted for someone else. It's a conundrum voters face whenever there are two or more candidates. Do you vote for the person you like, or do you vote for the person most likely to defeat the person you don't like?
When they go into the voting polls...
Questions political activist Kyle Bailey says voters in Maine will never ask again. Well, this is a method where voters rank the candidates from most favorite to least favorite, effectively eliminating spoiler candidates.
With ranked choice voting, you have the freedom to vote for the candidate you like the best without worrying you'll have to elect the candidate you like the least.
Bailey calls it more democratic because people can vote with their heart. He also says it reduces extreme ideologues on both sides of the aisle.
Welcome back to Special Report. Tonight we continue our Sunday primetime series on voter fraud. Tonight with a look at efforts to keep hackers from affecting your vote. Here's senior correspondent Eric Shawn.
The Department of Homeland Security says hackers have tried to attack the voter registration rolls in 20 states. Russian hackers are suspected of hitting Illinois, grabbing upwards of 200,000 names, and Arizona this summer. In Ohio, Secretary of State John Husted says voter rolls in his state could be vulnerable.
Our voter registration system is connected to the internet, and so that does expose us to a potential cyber attack.
Husted is taking measures to block any hacking. He says the state's voter registration lists are backed up every night as a precaution and is confident voters will be protected.
I think there's a potential for disruption, but not a potential for chaos because of the backup systems that we have in place, and we're doing all we can, but as I noted, you can never eliminate the threat.
In the last presidential election, many states saw long lines and delays of hours at polling places. Some fear if hackers get into the voter rolls this time, they could make the problems even worse by changing names, addresses, and voters' private information.
It's a terrifying thought to think that our system could be hacked. The greatest system in the world could be hacked.
New York voter Muffy Potter Aston waited hours to vote in 2012 and says there was more confusion in the voter registration rolls when she showed up in April at her polling place at Hunter College in Manhattan for the presidential primary. She hopes officials do have the ability to safeguard the election system by preventing any hack, saying everyone's vote should be protected.
We have to be prepared for it. We have to be organized about it. You shouldn't be turning anyone away. Anyone who has a right to vote should be able to cast that ballot without any sort of hesitancy.
Ms. Aston also says our computerized election systems should be expanded to make voting easier as well as foolproof. A spokesman for the New York State Board of Elections told us that so far they don't believe they've been hacked, but they are blocking suspicious IP addresses that could be more hacking attempts. Bret.
Thanks, Eric. Let's consider right now what happens after the election. Here to talk about the transition process is Max Steyer, CEO of the Partnership for Public Service and nonpartisan advisor to both the Clinton and Trump transition teams. Max, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
A lot of people don't know what's already going on. We focus a lot about the election, the process, the horse race, but underneath all of that, both teams have been working for some time.
You got it exactly right. You're talking about the largest, most complex, important takeover on the planet. You've got a $4 trillion budget for the U.S. government. You've got over 4 million people that work there, if you count the military as well, 4,000 political appointees, and whoever our next president is going to have to make sure that all of that is working right so that they can actually fulfill their promises, keep us safe in a dangerous world, and that work has to start taking place both pre-election and very intensely after the election as well.
The chair for the Trump campaign is New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and then for the Clinton campaign is Ken Salazar, former Colorado senator.
Exactly right, and each of them have teams that are working hard right now trying to make sure that if their candidate wins, that they're ready to take over the government, again, to keep us safe and to fulfill the promises that they need to do. And it's a huge undertaking. You've got hundreds of different operating units in the government, got lots of problems that you know about, you got the asteroids coming in that you don't know about, and if you don't, again, prepare early, which means getting your team set, making sure you have your 100, 200-day plans once you arrive, making sure you understand the lay of the land, you're in big trouble, and so are we.
How detailed are they getting now? Are they going down to positions? Are they looking at people to fill positions? What level of detail are they getting to?
Well, what they should be doing, there again, 4,000 political appointees. Of them, 1,100 are Senate confirmed. There are about 400 to 500 that are central to the running of our government, and they're clearly not going to be picking people right now, but they do need to be looking at options. They need to decide what the critical positions are. They need to be figuring out who those options might be, and they need to be ready to move immediately after the election so that they have any chance of getting the team on the field in real time.
Is one team doing it better than the other team?
Well, so this is one of the fun things. Obviously, in the election, you have a campaign against each other. Right now, they both have races against the clock. Both teams are working actively. Their job is to make sure not that they're beating each other, but they're actually going to be ready in time. And I think both of them are doing the things that they need to do. But they're just starting the marathon, and it's a sprint, so not a very easy thing to do.
73 days from Election Day to inauguration, and then you are there. Once you're at January 20th, that's it.
That's it. 73 days. They got to start earlier. They have started early in order to be ready. And when you think about that's it, that's the safety of our country. The transition is the point of maximum vulnerability. Again, it's a dangerous world when people are looking for a time to create havoc. In this country, the moment of handover of power is one of those times in which we have to be extra ready. They're making lots of promises on the campaign trail. They can't get those done if they don't have their team ready and prepared and the right people in the jobs.
Is there some right seat, left seat with the outgoing administration once you get to the point where you have the people that you have chosen?
That's an excellent question, and the past has not been super good on that. The Bush administration had the best handoff of power ever to the Obama team. They started a tabletop exercise so that they would literally, as you just suggested, do a crisis management practice round with the new people coming in. A new law requires that be done again. You need to see more of that. You need to see a continuity of the outgoing folks helping the new people coming in, or else they can't be ready. And we don't want a crisis to be a live exercise when these people are doing it the first time. They need to practice. They need to be the right people. They need to be prepared. And they need the help from the outgoing.
So both teams are working on the peaceful transition of power.
Both teams are doing it, and it's good for all of us. We should see more of an investment because this is whether we're going to get the government that we want.
Max, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a million for doing this.
Back with some final thoughts after one last break. Finally, tonight, an invitation to tune in all week to Special Report, 6 Eastern. Monday, we will be live from the trail with our campaign coverage. We'll also look at how strong the GOP firewall really is as Republicans fight to hold on to control of the House as well. Wednesday, we're live from New Hampshire. The first in the nation primary state will be our last Special Report on the road before election coverage from New York in our brand new studio there. In New Hampshire, we'll get a first-hand look at that key battleground state, as well as take a deep dive into a critical Senate race that's going down to the wire. We're trying for both candidates with us. We'll see. And while we're there, we'll kick off our new series called Issues That Matter, moving down the list of the issues that voters say matter to them most, starting at number 10, the drug epidemic. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight. That's it for this Special Report. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. Up next, Justice with guest host Kimberly Guilfoyle. She has Eric Trump in studio. We'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, for Special Report.
In Morocco.
But it was the big money from a foreign person to the foundation at the time she's running for president.
This was, as you can see in those emails, this was a scheduling matter, and we didn't want her going overseas. I didn't want her going overseas before the campaign was kicking off. Every campaign wants to win by the biggest margin possible, so that would be great. The reason that we've gone into Arizona is that it has come into play.
While the Clinton campaign is expressing confidence at this stage, the emails continue being dumped each day, and WikiLeaks is threatening it has a surprise for Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine. Bret?
Mike Emanuel live in Charlotte. Mike, thank you. Let's bring in our panel. Early here on Special Report, Charles Hurt, political columnist for the Washington Times. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics. Julie Pace, White House correspondent for the Associated Press. And Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com. Okay, I want to put up the Trump contract with America that he tried to roll out in Gettysburg. He did. News across the nation and around the world. Another special Sunday edition of Special Report starts right now. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier. Cautious optimism seems to be the theme of the Clinton campaign tonight, but the email scandal won't go away, fueled by constant document dumps from WikiLeaks. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel is live tonight in Charlotte. Good evening, Mike.
Well, Bret, good evening. Hillary Clinton has picked up the pace of campaigning here in the final stretch, making multiple stops in North Carolina today after making 2 stops in Pennsylvania yesterday. She began her day here visiting an African-American church.
We must pray, and we must pray together.
At a Baptist church in Durham, Clinton had some help from the so-called mothers of the movement who have lost children in incidents with police. She focused on African-American turnout.
We know we face the continuing challenge of systemic racism. If we're honest with each other.
For the reason, it gives them something to focus on and talk about the issues. Because, I know everybody likes to talk about what a nasty campaign this has been, and it's been interesting to say the least. But it's not entirely, it's not like it's not about issues. On the Trump side, the reason so many of those people love Donald Trump is because of the issues, and this contract is goes to the heart of those issues that they like about him. He might be vulgar and all that kind of stuff, but there are issues that draw people to him.
Julie, supporters would say we buy in. They might not hear everything about this because the news focused on something else he said at that event in Gettysburg.
And by now, Trump should know that that's always going to be the case. If he, as the Republican nominee, if any presidential nominee goes out there and says something really inflammatory, in this case saying that he's going to sue all of these women that have come forward, that's going to be the news. And
we have to choose hope over fear, or there is no future for any of us.
The King of Morocco agreed to host a Clinton Global Initiative Summit and give $12 million only if Mrs. Clinton attended a May 2015 meeting. Clinton refused to answer the question.
No, I have nothing to say about WikiLeaks other than I think we should all be concerned about what the Russians are trying to do to our election.
Top aide Huma Abedin emailed campaign chairman John Podesta and campaign manager Robbie Mook in January 2015, quote, "This was HRC's idea. Our office approached the Moroccans, and they 100% believe they are doing this at her request." Abedin concluded she created this mess, and she knows it. On Fox News Sunday, Chris Wallace confronted Mook about this latest pay-to-play allegation involving the Clinton Foundation.
Well, I didn't want anything on her schedule that was going to distract from the campaign. And again, the Clinton Global Initiative had this meeting scheduled.
First, a proposal to constitutional amendment to impose term limits. Second, a hiring freeze on all federal employees to reduce federal workforce through attrition, except military, public safety, and public health. Third, a requirement that every new federal regulation to existing regulations be eliminated, for everyone to be eliminated. Fourth, a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials becoming lobbyists after leaving government service. Fifth, a lifetime ban on White House officials lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. Sixth, a complete ban on foreign lobbyists raising money for American elections. Okay, there is the Trump contract with America. Charlie, does that make a difference in these final closing weeks?
Well, I think it's a great. I think that's a great proposal, and I think that talks right to the very people that have been so enthusiastic. The problem is that it's a little bit late to be doing it, and it would have been good if he had done it before the debates, or at least before the last debate, because if for no